There is a war being fought beneath two capital cities that neither government will put on the record. One side released footage and named the target. The other sealed the blast zone, blocked the cameras, and scrubbed the location from satellite maps. What is happening underground right now may be the most consequential dimension of this entire conflict, and almost no one is talking about it. Before we get into it, if you're trying to follow this conflict with clear, grounded analysis, subscribe and hit the like button. It takes 2 seconds, and it helps this reach people who actually want to understand what's happening. Now let's get into it. We are now 10 days into an active military exchange between Iran and Israel that has no defined endpoint, no active ceasefire negotiations, and no clear picture of what either side considers a victory condition. According to Iranian state sources, the IRGC has launched more than 500 ballistic and cruise missiles, and upward of 2,000 drone strikes since the opening salvo. If those numbers hold up, this is the most sustained ballistic missile offensive in the modern history of the Middle East, by a significant margin. Iran has been unusually public about what it says it is targeting. It has named 27 American military installations across the region. It has listed Ben Gurion International Airport. It is claimed to have knocked out 7 radar systems operated jointly by U.S. and Israeli forces, and it has announced wave after wave of strikes on central Israel, with the IRGC publicly numbering them as sequential operations under what it calls its ongoing campaign. But among all of those stated objectives, one claim stands apart. Iran says it has struck the underground command infrastructure sitting directly beneath Israel's military headquarters in Tel Aviv, a compound called the Kirya. Israel has not confirmed it. Israel has not denied it. Israeli authorities sealed the area, blocked press access, and said nothing. And that silence, as we are going to show, is entirely consistent with how Israel handled the exact same situation the last time it happened. Most coverage of this conflict treats Israel's air defense network as the main analytical story. But the more important infrastructure question is what sits underground, because that is what Iran's targeting doctrine is oriented around. The Kirya compound in central Tel Aviv is not simply a military headquarters with reinforced basement shelters. According to open-source defense analysts, and a rare inside account published by the New York Times, it conceals a layered network of hardened underground facilities that have been under construction and expansion for decades. The first installation worth understanding is referred to in defense literature as Site 81. Analysts describe it as an electromagnetically shielded command and intelligence center occupying an estimated 6,000 square meters beneath central Tel Aviv. Its core design function, according to those assessments, is to preserve communications and operational command continuity, even if every surface structure above it is destroyed, jammed, or rendered inoperable. The second is a more recently completed facility that some reports describe as a deep command post built directly beneath the Kirya. The New York Times, in its account, described a multi-level underground operations center where dozens of analysts worked at tiered stations, monitoring live strike data across large wall-mounted screens. During active conflict, the number of personnel working there around the clock reportedly rises into the thousands. These are not hypothetical targets. They are documented facilities. And Iran has been explicit that striking them is the objective, not the buildings above, but the command architecture below. What gives the current Iranian claims analytical weight is what happened in the same geographic zone less than a year ago during the 12-day conflict between Iran and Israel in June 2025. That war, according to Israeli Health Ministry figures, resulted in 28 Israeli deaths and more than 3,000 hospitalizations. During the fighting, a ballistic missile struck near the Da Vinci apartment towers in central Tel Aviv. The Jerusalem Post reported at the time that the impact occurred, in its phrasing, a stone's throw from the building then serving as the Prime Minister's operational office. In the weeks that followed the ceasefire, that same building entered a period of renovation that Israeli officials never publicly explained. No confirmation of damage was ever issued, no denial either. The information management around the Da Vinci strike was, by any analytical standard, notable. The impact zone was physically sealed. Press access was denied. French broadcaster France 24 later published an analysis concluding that Israeli media coverage of the event appeared to have been deliberately delayed. One major Hebrew language outlet reportedly waited 2 full weeks before publishing anything about the strike, even though photographs had already appeared online. And the digital footprint is still there today. Satellite imagery platforms, including Google Maps and Russia's Yandex Maps, continue to blur the imagery over the Da Vinci complex. Street-level view coverage on the road directly in front of those towers does not exist on either platform. That is the precedent. Iran targeted this zone. The damage was concealed. The satellite record was altered. The media was physically kept out. And now, in March 2026, the IRGC is claiming it struck the same area again. The response from Israeli authorities is identical. Seal the perimeter, block the cameras, say nothing publicly. To understand why underground facility targeting is a credible strategic objective rather than propaganda, you need to understand what Iran has been firing. Among the most technically significant weapons confirmed in this campaign is the K-Bar-Shekin-4, also designated the K-Bar missile. Iran publicly unveiled this system in May 2023. According to technical assessments, it carries an estimated 1,500 kilogram warhead configuration and has a range of approximately 2,000 kilometers. What makes it strategically distinctive is its cluster delivery mechanism, which analysts say activates at altitude and disperses roughly 20 individual submunitions across a wide surface area. That dispersion pattern changes the targeting math entirely when applied against buried infrastructure. A conventional unitary warhead needs a near-direct hit to threaten a hardened underground facility. A cluster warhead does not need to penetrate. It saturates the surface above the target, shredding ventilation intake systems, communications conduits, emergency access points, and above-ground relay infrastructure. The facility itself may survive. Everything it depends on to function may not. The IRGC publicly stated it deployed this weapon system in what it numbered as the 19th wave of its campaign, directing strikes at central Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion Airport, and an Israeli Air Force installation. Israeli authorities acknowledged one morning impact on open ground in a central town, but disputed the broader IRGC characterization of the operation, its results. The American and Israeli position is that joint operations against Iranian mobile launch infrastructure inside Iran have reduced the ballistic missile rate by approximately 90% from the opening day rate. Even accounting for that reduction, confirmed strikes on Israeli territory have continued. As of March 8th, 4 major confirmed impacts have been documented inside Israel. Since the conflict began, reports indicate more than 1,600 Israelis have required hospitalization, 10 civilian deaths have been confirmed. Here is where the strategic picture becomes symmetrical in a way that demands attention. Because while Iran is claiming to have struck Israel's buried command architecture, Israel has already done the verified version of that exact operation against Iran. On March 6, 2026, the Israeli Air Force conducted a strike on what it described as an underground command bunker beneath the leadership compound in central Tehran. The IDF stated that approximately 50 aircraft were involved and that around 100 precision munitions were dropped on the facility. Israeli spokespeople announced the total destruction of the installation and released footage of the operation publicly. According to the IDF, the bunker extended beneath several city blocks and contained command chambers, meeting spaces, and corridor networks used by Iran's most senior leadership. Israeli intelligence branches, reportedly including signals and visual intelligence units, are said to have spent years conducting detailed mapping of the facility's internal layout before the strike was authorized. The operational contrast is stark. Israel documented its underground strike, released footage, named the target, and described its methodology in detail. Iran has produced no equivalent documentation for its claimed strike on Israeli infrastructure, but the absence of visible evidence is not the same as proof that nothing occurred. Not when the impact zone has been sealed, not when the satellite imagery over the same location has been altered before, and not when that same area was subjected to a documented media blackout during the previous conflict. Both sides, the evidence suggests, are pursuing the same core objective: find and destroy the other side's buried command nodes. One side chose transparency, the other chose silence. And in conflicts like this one, silence is often a data point of its own. The consequences of this conflict are no longer contained to the military dimension. Crude oil has crossed $115 per barrel. Analysts attribute the spike primarily to ongoing disruption in the Strait of Hormuz and damage to energy infrastructure across Gulf states, neither of which shows signs of immediate resolution. 7 American service members have been killed in the broader regional theater. U.S. naval forces have reportedly destroyed more than 30 Iranian naval vessels, with the White House characterizing Iran's surface fleet as no longer combat effective in its previous form. On Israel's northern border, Hezbollah has opened an active secondary front, launching strikes and engaging Israeli ground forces near the Lebanese border. Iraqi factions aligned with the broader Iranian axis have joined the offensive with their own drone and missile campaigns. And then there's the question that no military analyst can currently answer with confidence: whether Iran's strategic decision-making architecture can sustain coherent targeting discipline going forward. On March 8th, Iran appointed Mojtaba Khamenei, son of the late supreme leader, as his father's successor. The IRGC and Iran's full senior leadership structure reportedly pledged allegiance immediately. He is now in command of an active war he did not initiate, with a ballistic missile stockpile that has been significantly drawn down, a military leadership that has sustained heavy casualties since the opening days, and no apparent framework for a negotiated exit. Whether he can maintain operational coherence under sustained American and Israeli pressure is the open question that every defense ministry currently watching this conflict is trying to answer. Pull back from the individual strike claims, The sealed streets, the blurred satellite imagery, the competing press releases, and a single strategic reality comes into focus. Both Iran and Israel are now engaged in what analysts describe as a counter-command campaign, a systematic effort to locate and neutralize the other side as decision-making infrastructure at its deepest accessible point. Israel documented its operation against Tehran's underground command node and published the footage. Iran is claiming a parallel operation against Tel Aviv's buried nerve center and has sealed the evidence. Whether that claim is accurate, exaggerated, or entirely false remains unverifiable precisely because the information environment around the target zone has been controlled as thoroughly as the airspace above it. What is not in dispute is the trajectory. The weapons are becoming more destructive. The targets are becoming more sensitive. The decision makers on both sides are increasingly untested under this level of sustained pressure. And neither government has offered any public account of what a negotiated or military resolution to this conflict actually looks like. The underground war is real. Its full extent remains hidden. And the surface-level narrative that both governments are managing may matter far less than what is happening several floors below the headlines. That is the full picture as it stands today. If you found this analysis useful, subscribe and like the video. It directly helps this channel keep covering these developments at this level of depth. And drop your perspective in the comments below. Where do you think this conflict is headed? What is not being covered that should be? The conversation down there is always worth reading. See you in the next one.